So you've started using Framer, trying to build a few sites, but now you need the clarity on how to save time by structuring your projects before actually diving into the building process. Things like creating your color and text styles, basic components, and a bulletproof site structure that basically guarantees responsiveness for your website. If you stick around until the end of the video, you're going to learn all of that. So you can save time and have better structured, cleaner projects from now on. My name is Nandi, this is Framer University, and let's get started. So the first question, what are we doing here? So basically, we are going to create a starter project. The starter project will be helpful for you because then when you will start new projects in the future, you can just remix this project that we're creating and you don't have to rebuild the same stuff over and over again. So the project will have a responsive structure, it will have some color styles, some text styles, it will have some basic components. So yeah, you don't have to rebuild them each and every time you are creating your projects. So in this video, I'm going to help you creating your own starter project. I'm going to help you customize it, create the color styles, text styles in a really easy and fast way. We're going to also build some basic components. And then, yeah, we're going to also do a site structure that basically guarantees you the responsiveness. And yeah, I think that's it. The finished starter project that I created in this video will be down in the description. You can remix it if you want to, but I highly recommend you walking through this whole process with me in this video, building it for yourself from scratch with me. So what I'm looking at here on my screen is basically a blank page. So let's start with the first step, starting a new project. We have already started the project, so we don't have to do that. So let's jump into the second step, which is going to be creating our color styles. So the color styles will be created on the left panel. You can see that we can switch between pages, layers, and assets here. So assets will be the one that we need, because here we can create text, link, and a bunch of different styles, but what we need is color styles. We just click here, create a new color here, maybe red. And then we could start adding these one by one, which is not really great. We don't want to waste our time with doing that. We can just simply run a plugin that creates all of our color styles for us. So we could just press Command and K on our keyboard. We can search for Browse Plugins, not Browse Library. Where is it? Oh, okay, Open Plugins. That's what we need. And then we have to search for color palettes. And here it is. This is the little plugin that we need. We just have to click it. As you can see, it is launched right here. And as you can see, we can just change to a different color and it will be generated for us. So what I'm going to do in this starter project is I'm going to create a neutral color palette, because for each project we need a grayscale. That's right. But each and every project will have a different accent color, and that's why when you actually remix this project, when you want to start a new project, that's when you're going to add like an accent color. But by default, it's going to have the neutral colors. So I'm going to click here and then we're going to select all, and then this will not be clicked right here. We don't want to generate dark mode colors, but if you want to do that, you can do it as well. And then we're just going to click add colors. And as you can see, all of these are generated right here in the left panel, and I don't have to do that one by one, which is really, really useful. One thing I want to mention here is that the color palette plugin has a little limitation, and that's the fact that you cannot really set like a custom color as the starting color. You can switch between these different presets of like different colors, and you can add these, but you cannot really define your own color, which is not too good. So for that, you can jump to uicolors.app/create. If you want to specify like a specific color, you can set that accent color here, maybe like this blue, and then you can just export this color palette, bring it into Framer, but then unfortunately you'll have to create these color styles one by one, but you know, it is what it is. So now, first step is done. We have our color palette, we have our grayscale, and now we can move into creating our text styles. So similarly to how we did our colors, we're going to use another plugin for the text, because we don't want to go ahead and clicking these bunch of buttons to create the text styles one by one. So I'm going to again go to plugins and search for type system. I'm going to launch this plugin, and basically here you can set it up in a way however you like it. And so the settings I'm going to use is minor third right here. Then we're going to have Inter as a font. The base size will be 16. The heading line height will be a little bit smaller. It's going to be 1.1. Then the body line height will be a little bit larger, 1.6. I don't know why I want to say 0.6. So 1.6, and the letter spacing will be decreased just slightly. It's going to be minus 0.02. And basically that is the configuration that I'm going to use right here. And again, notice how I click the generate text styles. Everything is added right here for me automatically just by clicking this one button, which is really nice. So these are generated, looks pretty cool. However, I have to do some things. So first of all, I have to go through each of these and change the weight, because you will see that if I add a text layer here, this is a heading, and I add the age one, you're going to see that it has a regular weight. Let's just see it. Okay, so you can see that it's regular. So we want to have something a little bit more bolder for these headings. So we have to go through each of them and change where it's needed. So the H1 will be semi-bold. H2 will be probably semi-bold as well. And then H3 will be medium. H4 will be medium as well. H6 will be medium, and the rest can stay regular. Then what we have to do is we have to remove the breakpoints from the body and the small text style, because all of the other ones can have these text styles. You can see them in, not text style, the breakpoints. So yeah, basically we have to remove some breakpoints. These breakpoints are essentially creating a responsive text for us automatically, which basically means that when we are visiting this website on a tablet device, this heading one will have 43 pixel size, and on mobile it's going to have 38. So it will just automatically scale the text down for us, which is really nice. So we're going to just remove these from the body and the small, because these are already really small, so they don't need to be adjusted further. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's all we have to adjust here on these. So if we add like a heading one, build sites with framer, and we switch it to heading one, you'll see that as I add new breakpoints here on the top right, tablet and phone, you see how it scales down on smaller devices. Of course, right now it's not really responsive because we haven't set it up, but maybe I can just quickly pin it to both sides. And now if I take a look at here on phone, you'll see that it is just slightly smaller. So it fits better for those smaller devices. And one extra thing that I want to do here is make sure that when I apply these text styles, they don't disappear, because now what happens is that as soon as I apply one, it turns into like a black color text. It's because that black color is set right here on the styles. So I can just set them to white so they work better with dark mode. Actually, for the body, we're gonna set maybe 500 from these color styles that we already generated. So they're gonna be a little bit of a drop opacity, or not really drop opacity, but yeah, they're not gonna be as bright as the fully white colored text layers. And now you can see that we are just a few minutes into the video into building our starter project, but we already have set up all of the color styles and the text styles that we will need for our project, which is really good. So now we can move on to the next part, which is about building the basic components. So here we will focus on building some elements that we need for most of the project. So basically buttons, footer, and the navigation, and basically that's gonna be it. For your project, you have more time in this video. We have limited amount of time, but when you have more time, you can add more basic components to your project. So either like cards, accordions, different layouts, pricing components, and stuff like that. So you don't have to rebuild those each time when you're creating a new project, but you only have to restyle them or just change the corner radius, the color, the text, and stuff like that. So yeah, let's build the first thing, which is going to be a button. So I'm going to just click here on the canvas, but after pressing T on my keyboard, I'm going to write get started, and I'm going to set it to the body that we defined, the body text style, and then I'm going to change its color to black. Then I'm going to wrap it inside of a stack by selecting the get started text, right clicking, and then clicking add stack. Then we can set this width to fit content, and then we can set the fill color of the stack to white. And I don't know why we cannot see it. Okay, it's jumped right here, so we can just recenter it here on our canvas, so we can continue building the button. So for this button, I'm going to set 44 pixel, or maybe just 40 pixel height. And then the padding on the left and on the right will be 16, because I'm just basically using the value from the font size, and this is 16 size font, so we'll have 16 padding on the left and on the right. Then I just realized that we cannot really use the body style here because we need a little bit bolder text. That's not an issue. On these buttons, we can actually use text layers that doesn't have these text styles, because most of the time, at least in my opinion, these text styles are needed to have the breakpoint support, so they are automatically scaling down on smaller devices. But for example, if you have like a small button, you feel free to like use a text that doesn't have a style. But if you want to improve your project a little bit better, and you want to make sure that this also has a dedicated text style, then feel free to do that. So then it will also be adjustable from this left assets panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the weight to semi-bold, and then basically that's it. Now we can round the corners fully. So I'm going to set the radius to 20, and that's going to be it. We have the base of the button, so we can rename this tag to button, and then we can turn this into a component really quickly. Right click, create component, and that's it. Now it has created a tablet and phone like variants for it, which we don't really need. So I'm gonna delete those. But we'll create some other variants, such as like secondary, primary, and a little bit smaller version of this button as well, that we can maybe place in the navigation. So this will be primary large. And then we're going to create a new variant, which is going to be primary small. And here I'm going to decrease the height to 34. The text size will be 14. And then the padding on the sides will also be decreased to 14. So basically that's it. Now we have the small version of the primary. And then we can create a new variant. This is going to be secondary. And this is where we're going to change the background color of the button to something a little bit darker. Maybe this 800 color style that we created, and then the text will switch to white. I will also test it here on the black background just to see if it looks great. Secondary, and yeah, it feels really good. So now I can also create the small version for the secondary. So just click variant, create a new one, and then decrease the height here as well to 34. The padding on the left and right to 14, and then the text size will be scaled down to 14 as well. So now we have this button. The only thing that we have to make sure that it's nicely usable is that we can set different texts for each of these buttons, because now on each of these instances we see get started, and there's no way for us to change that here on the right properties panel. So we have to create some variables for that. So I'm going to click the text on the primary variant, go to the right, click this plus button next to the content, create variable plain text. So this is going to be the title of the button, and then we're going to also add the link property. So I'm going to click the primary variant right here, and on the top right I'm going to add the link, and I'll also create a variable for that. So now you'll see that for each button we'll have a title and a link property. So I can maybe say watch video. And so now these different buttons are telling me different things. So the next basic component that I'm going to build is in navigation. Again, here we also want to save time, so we're not building it from scratch, of course, but we are using a pre-built component from the Framer interface, and then we're just making it a little bit better. So I'm going to press I on my keyboard, and then search for navigation maybe. I think I'm not going to find it this way, yeah. Last time I was not finding it that way, so we'll have to just hover over the navigation and then drag in one of these. I'm going to probably use this dark mode and this first version here. So I'll just drag and drop it here. And yeah, now it is here on our canvas. As you can see, it is a component already, having all of these different states. So it has a mobile optimized version where you can just, open it down. But the thing that I don't really like about this is that when I have a really large site, as you can see, it just scales with it without having like a max width. So in order to be able to set a max width for this inner content, we'll have to restructure it a bit. And then I also want to make sure that, this is for a starter project. So I want to make sure that it's really easily customizable. So when I create a new project, I want to be changing the logo really easily. I want to be able to change maybe the links right here really easily, or maybe I want to have a little button here, a CTA. So yeah, let's do these little adjustments. So I'm going to go within the navigation, and then I'm going to start by making sure that we have an SVG component within this navigation instead of this little logo SVG. So the problem with this logo SVG is that we can only replace it by moving it out and then moving in another one, which is not that hard, but we can make it a little bit easier. So if you go to the Framer University website and search for SVG, we can just copy this component and then we can paste it here within our Framer project. And I'm going to just paste it within this frame right here. And now you can see that instead of this Framer logo, we're going to have this component here with the Framer University logo. And with this component, we can change the logo by adjusting the SVG code here on the right properties panel. Where can you get this SVG code? Good question. You can just open Figma, click your logo, then right click it, copy as, and copy as SVG. Once you have that, you can go back to Framer and then replace the SVG code with that code that you just copied. Then you can see that you will now see your logo in the component. In my opinion, it's a little bit more easier to customize a display, because then you can also create a variable for this, and then you're gonna be able to access the component property from the canvas without actually coming into the component. So yeah, this is why we're gonna use this little component. So then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove these padding values from this top frame. So these are not needed. And then I'm gonna rename it to logo plus icon, because it also has an icon which is hidden right here, which is going to be our little like menu icon that we can click, or hamburger menu, but that is hidden in this state. And yeah, that's it. Now we also have these links, which look pretty good, but maybe we can make sure that they also have like links. So yeah, let's just add the links to these. So I'm gonna go to the features, go to the top right, and add a link variable here, so that we can access it from the canvas on the right panel. Now this blue colored link style is not really looking good, so we have to adjust it here. So I can just edit this link style and just change the colors here. So the current color will be completely removed. I don't really like having a current color. It basically means that how this link will look when we are on the page where it is linking to. So for example, if this is linked to the features page and we are actually standing on the features page, if we set like a red color, then that red color will be displayed when we are on the features page. I hope that makes sense, but I'm gonna again remove this. We don't need that. The hover color will be simply white, and then the default color will be this 500. And basically that's it. So when we hover over, we're gonna see white and then underline. Pretty simple. So I'm gonna add this link variable for each of these. Really easy. And yeah, looks pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap the logo plus icon and the links into a common stack so that we can add that max width to our stack if needed. So I'm going to press both of them, or select both of them, and then press Option Command and Enter on my keyboard. This is the shortcut for adding a stack. So now the stack wraps the logo plus icon and the links. And I can set or rename this stack to content. So essentially, this content frame has all the content within our navigation. And yeah, looks pretty good. Now, since we already designed our button, we can just go to the assets panel and drag and drop it here onto the canvas. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Command and X and then select the links stack and then just Command and V here. So now the links also have a little button. We can switch to secondary small, and we can also say something like sign up. Looks pretty good. However, it still has 40 pixel height because it's set to fixed. So to make sure it gets the height that we set within the component, which if you remember for the smaller size it's 34, we have to set fit content here. Now you can see it is a little bit smaller. Okay, so at this point we just somehow have to make sure that the logo is on the left and the links are on the right. To do that, we just have to switch one property on the content stack, which is distribute, to set it to space between. Now it's pretty good. The only thing that is left to do is to make sure we don't touch the edges on the left and on the right. To do that, on the content we're going to add padding on the left and on the right. It's going to be 20 on both sides. So yeah, pretty good. But now you can see that if we start scaling this or just changing the width, it's still scaling and it doesn't really have a max width. So to do that, we just have to make sure that the content has a max width of, let's say, 1000 pixels, and now it's gonna have that max width. However, it now switched, or like it has the max width, but it's not centered within navigation. So we have to select our desktop primary and set the distribute to center. So now it's gonna be nicely centered. Great. So now the responsiveness is nice. So all we have to do is to look at these other like variants, because as you can see, because we made these changes, it now doesn't really look great on here. But before that, I just remembered one thing. We have to somehow make sure that we'll be able to set this button and change its position, because now, if you think about it, it is within the links stack. But on the phone version, we want to make sure that it's displayed next to the hamburger menu, which is going to be, by the way, on the other side. But the point is that these two will be right next to each other, the icon and the button. So how can we do that? Because there's no way to move this outside of the links frame and to the logo plus icon frame. So to do that, we'll have to do it on the primary variant already. So we'll have to copy it and then paste it within the logo plus icon and then set it to visible no right here. So that what we're going to be able to do is set the visibility to yes where we actually need it. So here on the phone, for example, we actually need it. So just switch the visibility to yes. So now it's right here. Of course, the ordering is all over the place. We will fix that a little bit later. And then to make sure that the button is not displayed here, we'll set it to visible no. And also here, we'll have to set it to visible no. I know it's a little bit weird because we cannot see it right here, but it is actually, you can see that it's right there. It's just hidden. So believe me, we have to set the button here to visible no as well. So now let's finish this up. We'll have to change this probably to fill, which is already fill. So why is it not filling up the available space? Well, it's because this links stack is right next to it. So we'll probably have to set the content here to vertical direction. Now it's good. Now these are right below each other, as you can see, logo plus icon on the top and the links are below it. However, this is in a little bit of a weird position. So the phone here will have to be adjusted to distribute start. So now as you can see, this logo plus icon starts at the top. I'll have to adjust the height to 64 and then just reorder these slightly. So the logo will be on the left, and then somehow I have to make sure that the icon and the button is a little bit closer to each other. So actually we have to do one more little change on the primary to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just set these inside of a common stack. So the icon and the button. So I'm going to kind of group them. So Option Command Enter. So this now wraps them in a stack. This will be called button plus icon. I'll set it to width fit content, and I'll change it to visible no. And then here I'll change it to visible yes. And I'll change the order. So the sign up button will be on the left and the icon will be on the right. So yeah, I think here everything is okay. So yeah, let's take a look at the phone open. Well, the phone open will have to have the same changes. So content will have to be set to vertical direction. The phone open will have to be set to start distribute. The logo plus icon is already filled, but we have to set it to 64 pixels height. And then the button plus icon is going to be visible. The button also will be visible. They're going to be the other way around. And that's pretty much it, I think. I think it's pretty much optimized. Maybe to have a little bit less space between these, we can decrease the space here on the primary. It's really important to do it on the primary variant because then it's going to be applied on all other variants. So the gap will be maybe 6 right here. And then you can see that now it decreased just slightly right here and here as well. So in theory, everything is okay because the interaction should have been capped, but I don't think that it was capped. Yeah, it acts a little bit weirdly. So we have to make sure that the interaction is okay. So there's a click interaction on the phone. I don't know why it's there. I think I added it by accidentally, but yeah, let's just remove it. And then let's see where we have. Okay, so now we have an interaction on this logo plus icon stack, which I have to remove. That I also have to remove it from the phone open. So the interaction that we'll set is coming from the icon. We're just gonna press L or just drag from here, go to the phone open on click when we click this button, then when we click this, we'll go back here. So now in theory it should be fine. Open. No, when I click it here, we go here. Why? There must be an interaction. Oh yeah, I have to remove this interaction from this complete variant. Again, I don't know, I probably added it accidentally. I don't know when it happened, but yeah, let's just remove it, but it shouldn't be there. So yeah, at this point, I think it should be fine. It opens down nicely. And yeah, it works really well. One thing I like doing is setting or just removing or just hiding the button when it opens down. So just set it to opacity 0, because when someone opens it down, I assume that they want to focus on these additional elements here or additional menu items, and they don't want to see the CTA. So that's just an improvement. And then what I forgot to do, by the way, on the button is that we can actually optimize it a little bit more, because now we can select the text on it, and then we also don't really have a hover state. So let's just quickly go back for a second to the buttons and do that. So we can really easily set a hover state, just a simple one, by adding these hovers here and then setting the filter and just setting the brightness to like a lower value, maybe 70. I'm gonna do this for the primary small as well. So hover and then filter, brightness, and 70. And I'm gonna also set this right here, but here the brightness will not be decreased, but it will be increased. So 120. And also here it's gonna be 120. And then the last thing that we'll have to do is to make sure that it's like not selectable, the text on the button. So we'll just select the text here in the primary, styles, user select, and set it to none. So now as you can see, when I click this, it's not really selectable. So yeah, our button is now optimized. Sorry for this little mistake. So now back to the navigation. I think we have everything correctly, but again, now we can go the extra mile and make sure that it's easily customizable here from the right panel, because now of course we can add all these links from here. But what if I want to change the logo or the CTA? So let's also add those as properties. So I'm going to just go to the SVG, create a variable for the SVG code. I'm going to call it logo. And then I'm going to also do the same for the button. But remember, we not only have this single button here, but we also have it right here within the button plus icon. So I'm selecting both of them on the primary, and that's where I'm adding the variable for the title, which is going to be called CTA title or something like that. and then for the link as well, which is going to be just called CTA. And yeah, basically that's it. Now we have a fully customizable navigation component that we can start using on our website. Oh, and just one more thing, because of course we can add links to these menu items here, but we cannot really change their text. So you can also add variables for their content properties here. So each of them will get a plain text, and basically that's it. Now all of them will be nicely adjustable from the properties panel. As you can see, if I go back here, now I have all of these titles and I can set features to resources, and now it says resources right here. So now we can create our last basic component that we are building together in this video, which is the footer. It's going to be structured really similarly to the navigation. However, Framer doesn't have one here on the insert panel, so you have to start building it from scratch. But it's not a big issue because it's really simple to create. So we'll just have to create a layout frame by pressing down F and drawing here on the canvas. Then I'm going to set a fair color from our styles. We're going to have a black color for this. And then on the right panel, it's going to be turned into a stack by clicking this plus button next to the layout. And so we can start placing elements within, but I'm going to rename it to footer. And actually, if you think about it, we can copy a few elements from the navigation because, for example, the links and the logo is literally the same. So let's just go in here and copy the SVG logo first, paste it in here, and also copy these links and paste it in here. Just remove the button because we're not going to need that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these text layers. I'm going to make them a little bit smaller. So is going to be 14 pixel size. But no, actually we can set the style that we set up previously, which is this small, which is going to be actually a little bit even smaller. So yeah, now we have the logo, the links. We also need some copyright tags. So I'm going to just copy these features, paste it here, remove its link, and then paste in the text that we need. So now I have the copyright text here. I'm going to break it into 2 lines, and then all I have to do is to structure it correctly so it doesn't look weird. So this copyright text and the logo will be in the same group or the same stack. So I'm going to select both of them, press Option Command and Enter, which is still used for adding a stack, and then I'm going to set the direction to vertical and then the alignment to the left. And then I'm going to set this layout text layer to fill width, so it fills up the available space. And then the gap here will be 20, so there's 20 pixel gap between the logo and the text. Okay, so now we can just wrap the stack that we created, which is by the way housing the logo plus text, and the links inside of a content stack. So Option Command and Enter, set it to or rename it to content, and then add the max width here of 1000 pixels. As you can see, the max width will be consistent all the time. So if I set 1000 in navigation, we can also set 1000 on the footer. And then basically that's it. Now I can make sure that the content frame has an alignment to the top. So these links are nicely aligned to the top. Maybe I can make sure that the links are also set to fill. And then to make sure that the links are to the right, we have to set the distribute to end. I think that's all I have to do right here. Maybe we'll have to play around with the responsiveness a little bit later. Maybe also set wrapping here. So on the links, you can set wrap so they wrap into multiple lines when they don't have enough space. And yeah, I think that's it. And also to make sure they're not touching the edges here, you know what we did on the navigation as well, setting 20/20 padding on the left and the right on the content stack. So now we can set this footer to probably fit height, and then we're gonna set 44 pixel padding on the top and on the bottom. And basically that's it. Now of course it's gonna be like full width, it's gonna always keep the width of the website, but yeah, now we have the footer, so we can turn this into a component, right click, create component, and then we're gonna have a tablet. Actually, we don't really have a tablet because it works, this layout works really well on tablets, so we just need to define the phone where we're gonna change the content to vertical, and then basically that's it. Just change the links to start, so they start at the left side, and maybe just change the gap here a little bit. So maybe it's gonna be 20 or a little bit more. I'm not sure what works well here, but yeah, something like this. And basically that's it. Again, here, just as a homework, you can also set like variables for the SVG here, variable for the copyright tags and for these things, just like how we did it for the navigation. So as you can see, we now have all the basic components that we created in this video. One extra thing that I remembered to make this footer a little more consistent. As you can see, this navigation has a bottom like line, like a little gray line here, almost like a stroke on the bottom. This is created with this bottom line. We can just copy this and then paste it within the footer. And then you can see that now it's on the bottom. We can just make sure that it's on the top by setting this pin to 0 on the top instead of 0 on the bottom. So now we're gonna have that line on the footer as well, but in the top. So yeah, again, now all the basic components are ready. Button, navigation, footer. You're gonna need to have these for all of your websites. But again, if you wanna like create more components, you can do that. So for example, in the finished project, I have actually created some accordions, as you can see it right here, some FAQ accordions, like pricing card components and these different other type of card components. These are also like really useful if you have some more time to set up these for yourself, for your starter project, because again, the more you have is the easier it will be to start each new project in the future. So the next part of this video will be probably the most useful for you, or I don't know, maybe everything was useful, but this is crazy. This is a site structure that basically guarantees you responsiveness on your website. Yeah. So how do we achieve that? Well, first of all, we're going to drop everything here that we created. So we don't need any of these on our website at the moment. Let me just focus on the desktop. So the first thing that we need to do when we are setting up a responsive site structure is that we are turning the desktop breakpoint into a layout on the right panel by clicking this little plus button. And basically now this desktop is a stack and we can set the direction, the distribute and everything here. So the direction will be of course vertical because the sections will be placed right below each other. So that's good. The distribute will be start. That is good as well because everything will start at the top. And then the gap will be 0 because I don't want any space between these sections that I place within. And actually I'm not telling the truth because here we're not gonna have sections, but we're just gonna have one frame which is called main, and this main container will house all of the sections on the website. This is the best like structure that you can use. Most websites that have like a great and proper structure use this. They don't just place the sections right here, right below each other, but they're nested within this main stack. And by the way, this main stack is also set to accessibility tag main. Okay, and now that I said this, I remember that we also have to set accessibility tag nav for the navigation, for example, which is already nav, very good. But we have forgot to do that on the footer, so let's just do that really quickly. Accessibility and footer. Why do we have to do that? Well, because the browsers will not know that this is a footer if we don't set it to a footer. So yeah, it will improve SEO and also it will be more accessible for users. So now back to the main, we have set it to accessibility tag main. We can remove its fill color, we can set it to width fill, and yeah, we can start placing sections within this. So I'm going to draw another frame within. I have not set this main to a stack, so I have to do that. So the elements within will be placed relatively positioned. So this frame will be called section that I just placed here. And the accessibility tag on it will be set to section. You might have guessed it. So this section will also be a stack. As you can see, everything is a stack in Framer. And then I can remove the fill color and then set the width to fill. And maybe the height will be 800 pixels or something like that. And then the main section that we created, or the main container, will be having distribute start, so everything starts at the top, and the gap will be 0. So now I can set the main to fit height. So it fits the content that we place within, so these sections. So if we duplicate it, you can see that now it has two sections, and so that the main is also getting larger. The only thing that is not adopting is the desktop. So in order to have it adopt, we have to set it to height fit content. So now everything is nicely adopting if we add more and more of these sections. And yeah, basically that's it. And now all we have to do is to add the further structure within the section, because actually this is not the end. We still have to go further down and define how these sections look on the inside. This might be also pretty easy to guess because we have already done this a few times. If you think back to the navigation or to the footer, you know how we set that content frame that wraps all the content within that, navigation or footer. And even here within the section, we need a content frame that wraps all the content. So we can set max widths on that content frame if needed. And usually it is needed because we don't want to have all the content spreaded across the width of the website. If you're looking at the website on like a large screen, you want to nicely contain it to a smaller width. So another frame within the section called content will be created, set to width fill, and then the height will be 400 for now, but later it is going to be fit content. And then the fill will be removed, and it's going to be a stack as well. So now this is it. Now we can place the elements that we want to have within this content frame. So if you want to create like a little hero section, we can do that really easily. You can just grab this title that we already created, put it within, set the width to fill, set the height to fit content, which is already fit content, and then we can just set the content finally to fit content. And if we duplicate this text, for example, if we want to add a subtitle, we can do that. And now these are positioned right next to each other. We can set the content to different directions. So in this case, we need vertical direction, so the elements are right below each other. And then we can write something here, maybe website builder for designers. And then we can set it to body. And then we can also change the color to 500. And then maybe we want to have a little bit more space between these, maybe 20. Looks very good. And then we can also add the buttons, for example, within this content frame. So get started and watch video. This will be primary small, not small. I don't know why I said small, secondary large. So yeah, I said primary small, and in reality I need secondary large, so I'm not in good shape. So these boot buttons will be set within a stack. So select all of them and press Option Command and Enter. Set Shift A to set this to fit content, and then set the direction to horizontal, so they're nicely placed right next to each other. And then to make sure that we have a little bit more space here, we can wrap these two text layers in a stack, Option Command and Enter, set the gap between them to 20, and then here on the content we can increase the space just slightly. And as you can see, now we have a little hero section. The only thing that we have to actually do is to set the section to 100 VH, so it takes up 100% of our given viewport. So as you can see, if I resize this content is staying in the center because the parent frame is actually filling up the available viewport height, not the viewport width, but the viewport height. Okay, so that's about the hero section. Maybe I want to do one extra thing, and that's the fact that I need to set padding on the left and right. Here it's not really visible because these are not touching the edges, but actually if we would have enough text or even broken into multiple lines in a way that it's right here, it could technically go to the edges. So we have to set 20/20 on the sides, just like we did it a bunch of times already. So 20/20 on the sides on the content frame. Basically, I think that's it. Now we're gonna actually take a look at some other tips about the structure, because there are some next level things that we can do. But let's now just create an additional section. Sorry, Mike. We can create another we can create an additional section where we take a look at some other things. So I'm going to just duplicate this, and then we're going to write something else here. I'm going to probably also set the heading to heading 2. And yeah, maybe I actually want to write something else here. Okay, so let's just paste in right here. And then I'm going to set the alignment to the left. And then I'm going to just keep maybe this secondary button and set the alignment here on the content. I'm going to probably set it to the center. I'm going to keep it on the center and just make sure that this stack of the text layers and the button is wrapped in a common stack. So Option, Command, and Enter. So this will be called text plus button. And here I'm going to set the alignment to the left. And I'm going to also increase the space between these. Maybe here we can decrease the space just slightly, maybe 14. And yeah, it looks great. And then maybe we want to have like a little image on the right side. So we can create a frame here, paste it within the content, and then set the content to direction horizontal. So now the text plus button and the frame is placed right next to each other. I'm going to set the frame or rename it to image maybe, and then set a gray color for that. I'm going to round its corners a little bit and add a white transparent border, and then I'm going to change the size a little bit. So maybe we're going to make it a little bit larger, 600 and 400 maybe, and set this lock here and then set the width to fill. So now it's going to fill up the available space but keep the aspect ratio that we defined there. And then to make sure that this takes up less space on the left, we can set it from 1 FR to 0.6 FR, let's say. So now as you can see, this gets a little bit less of the available space. So as you can see, this is just another section. And now that we created this is where I want to show you something really interesting. What many beginners are facing as an issue is the fact that they cannot really define how their website looks on all possible breakpoints, because what they see is these 3 breakpoint sizes, and they might define it in a way that it looks great here, here, and here. And by the way, to optimize it here, we just have to set the direction to vertical and then set this to 1 FR instead of 0.6. Basically, that's it. So now, a beginner might think that, okay, I have optimized it, but in some cases, it might look a little bit weird on these in-between states, because you can see that as I'm resizing this viewport, we're not only seeing like 3 breakpoints, while we have a bunch of in-between width sizes that we go through before actually going to the tablet and to the phone. And on each of these different like breakpoint sizes, as you can see that the text is breaking into multiple lines and stuff like that. And in some cases, this might cause some issues. What is a structure that allows us to define the different breakpoint layout on desktop, tablet, and phone, and then have that on the website and do not have these in-between states as everything is pushing together and stuff like that? So for that, what I use is I basically set max width values on the content frame. I basically override that max width value on tablet and phone. Because of course we can set this content to max width 1000. That might be something that you already do, but that will only keep 1000 pixels here. It's not scaling bigger than 1000. But if I change it to something smaller, it's going to be pushed together and it's like resizing in this way where everything is pushing together, the text is breaking into multiple lines. So to avoid that from happening, I'm setting different max width values on different breakpoints. So if I have 1000 on the desktop, then I'm going to have something smaller on the tablet. And it's really important to have something smaller than the actual breakpoint size. So if it's 810 here, have something smaller than that. So I'm gonna have 700 here. So you can see that it is actually smaller than the actual breakpoint. Here we're gonna actually have 400. So here it's not really important to have it on a smaller size. It can be a little bit bigger. 400 works for me most of the time. But yeah, so now what we did is we created 1000 pixel max width on desktop, 700 on tablet, and 400 on phone. So now the difference will be that we defined these breakpoints. We can see how they look. And this is exactly what we will see on the website when we resize the website. And it's not going to have all of this in between states. Let me show you how that works. If I start resizing here, you will see how it jumps to that smaller size that we defined. And this is exactly what I see right here. There are no surprises, you know, looks pretty good. And then it will jump into the phone as well. Works really nicely. And what I actually do is I create different presets. So for example, this could be called content large, so content L. And then for another section that might have a little bit of a more contained, a little bit smaller width, that could have, you know, other values. So if we just quickly go to the Framer University website, you can see that here, this has probably around 700 or something, and this is, you know, closer to 1000. So this is probably content large, and this is probably content small. And we just have to define these presets, set the max width values on all breakpoints, and then we can just copy and paste these content frames because these values will be kept. I'm going to also show that to you really quickly. So I'm going to just duplicate this content L. I'm going to rename it to content S. I'm going to make sure that they're right below each other by setting direction on the section to vertical. Then also the section will no longer be 100 VH. That's usually only used for the hero. So I'm going to set it to fit content. And then the top padding and the bottom padding is usually defined here on the section. So top is going to be 100, bottom will be 100 as well. So just to again recap, bottom and top padding is set on the section frame. The left and right padding 2020 is set on the content frames. Okay, this is what works for me, and that's why I'm suggesting it to you as well. So now we have created this other content S. Here I'm going to just remove the image. I'm going to remove most of the things. I'm just going to have this one single text layer. I'm going to paste it in here. I'm going to also increase the space between them just slightly. So again, let's say that this is just going to be like a paragraph here. So we probably need a little bit more text. So let me just paste it in right here. Now we have more text. Let me just change the color here to 500. Now, both of these contents or these content frames have the same max width. So you can see that they are consistent. However, I can define content S as being 600 here on the desktop, and then on the tablet it can be 500, and on phone it can be 400. So it will basically stay 400. So now you'll see that they will both have like the same like difference roughly between each of them when they are like jumping into different breakpoints, and then of course on phone they'll line up nicely. But now we just have these different presets that we can start using. And by the way, maybe we want to have a little bit more space between them. But you know, it's not really important right now because I'm just trying to showcase how to build like a simple section. But yeah, and the great thing about this is that now, for example, we have defined the content L and content S right here. And if I want to do a content L on this new section, I can just copy and paste this content L right here. I can remove all of the content within. So now it's completely blank and I can create new stuff within. But the presets are kept. So 1000 is set on the desktop. On a tablet, it already has the override of 700 pixels because we have copied it from a breakpoint where it already had all these overrides, and we are just pasting it within, you know, the same breakpoint. And if we paste it into a new page, it's also gonna have these overrides. So yeah, we just have to set it once and then just copy and paste it, and then we have the preset. We just keep it. So before I move on to adding the footer and the navigation, because that also has really specific positions and places, I just want to quickly recap what we did here. First of all, turn the desktop into a stack. Vertical direction, distribute start, gap 0. Then we placed the main stack within. It basically has the same direction vertical, start, distribute, and 0 gap. And then within the main, we place all of our sections. Within each section, we have a content frame, and inside of that content frame, we have all the content that we need within each section. Regarding the padding values, we set the top and bottom padding usually to 100, but for each website it's different. I like 100, 100 top bottom, but yeah, we set it on the section. On the left and right, we set the padding using the content frame. So each content frame has 20 pixel padding on the left and right, at least on my websites. And then for the content frame, we also set these different presets for the max width. So we have maybe 1000 for the content large on the desktop, then 700 on the tablet and 400 on the phone. And for the content S frame, we might have 600, 500 and 400 max widths on these different breakpoints. So I just wanted to quickly recap this because I think it's really important. And if you really get how it works, it's literally so easy to build responsive websites. So yeah, that's about this. Now quickly just place in these navigation and footer. So it's really important that they are going to be outside of the main. So they're not going to be part of the main container because these are not the main parts of the website. So for the navigation, we'll just copy it, paste it within the desktop, and I'm going to move it here to the top, and I'm going to set its position to fixed. Of course, for all navigation, it might need like different positioning types, but if you want to have it in a way that it just doesn't move, it stays there all the time, you have to set it to fixed. And also you have to set the top, left and right pins to 0. So it sticks to the left, right and top of the page. So as you can see, as I'm resizing it, the left and right side is sticking to it. And if I have something smaller, you see how it's like pushing together. And then I'll also have to make sure that the feed content is set for the height of the navigation, and then that the correct variant is set on the phone. So that's basically it. Let me just see how it works, and it works really nicely. We might notice in some cases that the navigation is not scrolling over the content of the website, but some elements are scrolling on top of it. It's usually because the navigation is for some reason below those layers. So to make sure it's above everything, you can set the z-index of this navigation to a larger value. So usually 9 or 10. Z-index is basically a property that defines how layers are ordered. So an element with low z-index will be below elements that have a larger z-index. So that's about the navigation. We can just grab the footer and also paste it within the desktop. As you can see, we have now navigation on top, then main, and the last element is the footer on the website, which is actually placed in with relative positioning, a width set to fill, height set to fit, and that's it. We just have to override the variant on the phone to phone, and that's gonna be it. Now, as you can see, we have the starter page or the starter project that we can reuse for each of our website builds. And you can see my finished one that I added multiple like layout options. By the way, again, this is in the description with a remix link. You can also do this if you know that you use like a layout many times. You can just do it on the starter project and then reuse it for new projects. So how do you reuse it? Well, basically you just copy the remix link. So you press Command and K on your keyboard, copy remix, and then press enter. And now you have your remix link. I'm gonna just paste it right here. Now you have your remix link. This is it. And you can save it somewhere, maybe create a shortcut for it or save it as a favorite in your browser, whatever. And then just click it when you're creating a new website. And basically that's it. So yeah, that's it for this video. I really do hope that it was helpful. Make sure to drop your questions in the comments if you have any about this whole like starter project thing. And yeah, also check out Framer.University. I have a bunch of cool remixes, resources, and other components and like tutorials just like this on that website. So if you're learning Framer or just enjoy using Framer, I think it's a great website for you. So yeah, that's it. Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, and I'm gonna see you in the next one.